Okay. All right.
Recording.
Well, it gives me great pleasure to welcome all our visitors to CTPS tonight. There's no, the reason why they're there, the draw card is of course Elize, who I'm very, very excited to introduce to you all. Last year, I contacted her and she was on her way to London to the World Wildlife Photography Awards ceremony, and she was one of the finalists in one of the sections, and I was looking for speakers for this year, and she was on her way there and she said, yes, of course, but I'm going to Svalbard, and when I come back from that, I will I'll put something together for your club. So it's really with great excitement that we've been waiting for this presentation. If any of you follow her on Facebook, it does amazing photography, but also wonderful little tidbits of information and stories about her travels, which is always very entertaining. So I'm sure we'll be entertained tonight by her presentation, and also be very inspired by her passion for photography. So let me hand over to Elize and we can get going.
Thank you so much, Kim, and thank you for everyone for joining. It's lovely to see old friends and new. I'm a bit in trepidation, but luckily I've got my son-in-law David here to sort out the tech stuff, and I can just swan along. Just a little bit of admin. If anyone wants to ask about a specific slide, the slides are all numbered. So just jot down the number and you're welcome to either email me afterwards or ask me questions about it. I just want to see this computer's not charging. I just need to put in the charger. There we go. There we go. I can just see we've got load shedding, so we're on generator. Okay, so yeah, very welcome to everyone. Thank you, David, for helping me and everyone who made this possible. I'm very excited to be in this kind of a league with you guys. Is wonderful. So for me, my talk is about passion. Life itself is created through moments of passion. Right from being conceived, man is the product and embodiment of passion. He who loses passion loses power. What drives a grandma should be knitting scarves to spend every waking minute and her last resources on traveling into nature to bring back a couple of pictures. My answer is passion. Passion mixed with sheer bloody-minded determination. I am that woman, and I live a life of determined passion, trying to make a difference in human perceptions about the plight of our earth. So we're going to start our slideshow now. And David is just going to fidget a bit, and then we'll talk to the slides. Enjoy the ride. Okay, are we sharing? Is everything good?
Looks good.
Yeah.
Is it good? Okay. Right. Tonight I'm privileged to share that passion with you, to put the eyepiece of my instrument, my camera, to your eye, to enable you to see what I see, to make you desire what I desire, and to awaken you a passion for conservation. I'd like to share with you the wonder of life and the Almighty's amazing creation. I want you to feel the sheer exhilaration I feel when sitting drenched with sweat in a little boat on a river watching a jaguar. When I slip and slide over dark, muddy roads to drown in the thick-lashed innocence of a dik-dik, or photograph capybaras. When I set foot in an otherworldly wilderness that few others have tread upon. So please breathe out, clear your mind, and start this very personal journey with me. We're going to the Arctic Circle, to Svalbard, also called Spitsbergen. The archipelago lies in the Arctic Circle, halfway between the coast of Norway and the North Pole. I believe that I've been preparing for this physical and spiritual journey all my life. But this white place is the center jewel in my crown, which I've been crafting over many, many years of traveling to many, many countries. I've never been this blown away by an experience, never been as determined, bordering on desperate, to get back to any place on earth as I am about that place with a sweet sounding name, Svalbard. Reflecting on my life, I realized I had to walk a mile or two before getting there, stumbling a few times along the road. In my 60th year, my life changed dramatically on so many levels. My beloved husband, Rodney, was diagnosed with a fatal lung condition. We decided to put everything we had into living. And boy, did we live life to its fullest, every second of the day, right until the day we could no more. Rodney carried a portable oxygen generator on his back for the last few trips. Life attained an urgency. The sand in the hourglass was running out. We'd always traveled extensively. Now we went into overdrive. It had its perils though, and I realized I am totally a high-risk traveler. While photographing jaguars in the Pantanal, I broke both my right leg and my right arm in a fall. Passion and determination kicked in. I refused to turn back, and that very same afternoon, with only 2 fingers working on my right hand, I took some of the most awesome kingfisher shots in my whole life. Delirious with pain, I chose to climb a viewing tower and photograph storks on a nest the next day. Passion became my drug, carrying me through 10 more days of traveling, walking the length of the Iguazu Falls on both sides. It was simply a matter of mind over matter. I got the shots. Exactly a year later, I traveled back to that exact same spot in the Pantanal where I fell, just to complete the circle, and for the hell of it. Unfinished business dealt with. Post-COVID, I needed a major goal, one to get me psyched up about, and one that would physically challenge me to go beyond what I ever thought possible. Svalbard fitted the mold. I booked as soon as Norway opened for travel, about 6 weeks before the trip. Getting there was a mission, as Lufthansa made changes at the last minute. I flew firstly Joburg, Frankfurt, then Frankfurt, Oslo, then Oslo, Bodo, which is in the Arctic Circle, then Bodo, Tromsø, and the last one from Tromsø to Longyearbyen. 5 flights. The planes got progressively smaller, the staircases progressively narrower and steeper, and my equipment felt progressively heavier. But I was prepared. Power walking daily with arm weights, getting back into shape was part of the deal for 3 months before my departure. My head was ready, the body caught up. I had 6 days by myself in Longyearbyen, the world's northernmost settlement, the most northern place on earth with a scheduled airline service. It's a frontier town and one feels it upon arrival. This is a wilderness of a different kind. It's white. My wilderness is brown and green. I was an African on ice. Dragging my luggage into the transfer bus, I marveled at the snow, at the beauty of white. Africans don't know snow. It was bitterly cold and I was bitterly underdressed. All my new warm stuff was in my suitcases. The bus unceremoniously dropped me off in the road in front of my hotel, the Radisson Bleu. The ground was slippery, my 4 bags hellishly heavy. Unintentionally skating towards the front door, leaning on a suitcase, then sliding back to the tarred road across the ice to fetch the next one, I made a totally unelegant entrance into the world's northernmost fully serviced hotel. On wobbly legs, I noticed the sign saying dog parking and another one saying car warming. What the heck? Where was I? Like a hungry beast, I shot a panel of the view of my hotel room window, overlooking a typically industrial Svalbard building. I lapped up the views from the passage windows, making unnecessary trips to the reception desk simply for the thrill of looking through those frames. Exuberance, joy, gratitude. I experienced them all. I became alive again, felt my body relaxing, thawing in the coldest of places. My 2 new woolen underlayers were padded up with thick Arctic fleece pants and tops, a brand new, amazingly light but warm jacket, a pair of quilted Farmer John ski pants, and most importantly, pure wool balaclava, beanie, and matching buff. 2 inner pairs of photographer's gloves slid into a new pair of outer mitts. I survived cold frozen fingers by adding heat-generating pads into the mitts. My daughter bought me some knee-length Arctic mud boots in London, big enough to fit a double layer of merino wool socks. They were toasty and comfortable, and wet landings in them was never a problem. When hiking boots sufficed, I added some crampons to prevent slipping, as the road surfaces in Longyearbyen were lethal, and I sincerely didn't want to break another limb. Arranging land-based activities beforehand is the way to go. Longyearbyen is a polar bear country, and no one is allowed to walk outside the parameters of town without a gun. A gun means a guide, and I chose to do my outings on a one-on-one basis. So, gun and guide accompanied me on a day outing by snowmobile. Outing means an extra layer like a flight suit or a onesie. It reminded me of my years microlighting in the freezing high-felt winter. Pushing my slick-looking snowmobile bike thing to 75 kilometers per hour, I shouted out to the wind, to the snow, and I shouted to the mountains. I was completely out of control, completely in control. I was free. I suffer from claustrophobia, so visiting an ice cave was actually not on the cards. Yet I needed to get over that. But first I had to get through the entrance hole and then get back out again, slipping on the melting ice inside the cave. Scary it was, but liberating too. Box ticked. Husky sledding was part of my planning from day one. I should have booked a multi-day camping trip, I know, but I settled for a day out. Next time I will go out for a few days, as the husky outing was one of the most amazing things I've ever experienced. My guide was a slip of a girl, extremely capable, and a volunteer at one of the big husky kennels outside of town. Taking turns in steering and being a passenger gave me the opportunity to take slow shutter speed images of the dogs straining against the reins. The years fell away, and stress took flight with each gentle touch of a dog's soft paw against the virgin snow. Life was good. On day 6, my friend and mentor, Shem Pompian from C4 Safaris, arrived. It was time for me to be part of a larger group, to integrate. I've never traveled in a group before. This transition happened gradually. Shem and I had booked a local guide with the odd name of Odd Gear to take us on a light stroll in the mountains, looking for polar foxes and reindeers. This odd man accidentally booked 4 other burly Spanish guys into the same outing. They had other plans than strolling. We didn't anticipate a heavy 9.5-kilometer hike in minus 25 degrees with a 25-kilometer-hour wind, fairly heavy snow, and climbing up slopes in thick, fresh snow. We were out for 5 hours, pushing it in terms of climate. But this is what I crave, to push myself to the limit. Shem was 1 layer short on his clothing. I was a few kilos heavy on equipment. My new backpack, which carries my camera, lenses, and extender, plus an extra camera and a few odd things, was a lifesaver, but heck, it was heavy. I believe a photographer carries his or her own gear. You don't get someone else to carry for you. So I was stuck in my own rules. Having the camera in my hand compromised my balance, and I fell a few times. Those burly Spanish guys came in handy for getting me up, while Shem shot some pics from the hips, capturing my embarrassment.
It won't hold. You've got to put down to in some way.
Someone else talking? The darn polar fox was nowhere to be seen. The men all slipped off to answer nature's call. Eventually, I had to order the guys. Eyes left, and I struggled out of my layers. Just as I was comfortable, Shem shouted, "Elize, Arctic fox, coming towards you." And he wasn't joking. So with the Arctic fox, another box ticked. Last one of the Arctic Fox.
We've lost you.
No, I'm just being quiet so you can enjoy the Arctic Fox. Okay, and then another dream came true when I photographed the endemic Svalbard reindeer in the wild. Smaller than most reindeer and definitely more lovable. Getting down to eye level meant leopard crawling on the snow and of course struggling to get back up. I anticipated battling with white against white shots, but somehow it just came naturally, obviously helped along by my top class equipment. I carried a Canon R3 and an R5 with me all the time, mostly using my new 400mm f2.8 mirrorless lens and 2x converter. Now that's a lot of tech talk for me, guys. So the two more images of the reindeer. It's the last one, which I decided to do in a bit of a blur. Actually, it decided by itself. Right. Finding the pure white Svalbard ptarmigan with a red marking above its eye was super. Lying on what felt like a freezing down blanket, getting up close to these magnificent birds was so special. And sharing it with Shem, my special family friend and mentor, was awesome. I knew Shem would be there for me, quietly watching over my progress and gently nudging me on to achieve more in photography than I could ever envisage. Shem and I talk visions, not f-stops. We set dreams, not shutter speeds. It was Monday morning, Mother's Day in Svalbard. I walked up to the local church to light a candle for my mother and my late husband. Goodbye, my love, goodbye. I release you to the universe. A great peace descended on me. Sitting alone in that freezing little church, I was reminded of another time in my life when I had to reevaluate my passions and goals. Rewind 2 years. In February 2020, while I was gaining confidence as a photographer, my husband was struggling with his health. About 5,000 kilometers from the coast of Chile, he joined his super fit wife at photographing the massive stone heads on Easter Island. On that day, we stayed up until 9 p.m., enjoying dinner on the beach. Within an hour, all the classic symptoms of a massive heart attack were there, but I refused to admit or submit. Myocardial infarction, commonly known as a heart attack, followed by CPR, put an end to all our plans to continue on our journey and photograph the pumas in Patagonia. Feeling one's life slip away is a strange sensation. I thought of a few things. One, I was grateful for having recently colored my hair. No ways was I going to die revealing my true hair color. Two, I fussed about a slipper that went missing in the ambulance. Three, I felt a huge sadness at losing the chance to see my grandkids grow up. Four, I decided that if by the grace of God, I was going to walk out of that hospital, I will live life even more furiously, more passionately, with gay abandon. Life has no guarantees, no patience, and there's a planet to be saved. That is my passion. Aggressive emergency treatment saved my life, but I was still in grave danger. Stressed out of his skull, Rodney arranged to airlift me 3 days later from Hangaroa on Easter Island to a state-of-the-art hospital in Santiago de Chile, where I had heart surgery. As the citation jet sliced through 5,000 kilometers of dark, starry sky, carrying a seriously ill, probably seriously mad woman, attended by a doctor and a nurse, this mad woman decided never to submit to mediocrity. She walked away with no lasting damage. She was given a new chance in life. COVID cancelled all our overseas travel for 2020. Patagonia, the Shetlands, Vladivostok. Rodney's lung transplant was postponed, and I had to face the horrific prospect of losing him. It happened in November 2020. While he was struggling for breath and I panicking, I threw myself into writing my memoirs. I simply had to make something useful of these useless, painful days. Passion, determination, and focus once again carried me through. Titled Good, Better, Betsy, the resulting book is available in hard copy in Afrikaans and on Kindle in English. There's my little commercial. You're welcome to order copies from me. The day after flights were opened between London and Joburg, that was in October last year, I was on the first flight up. That's when Kim called me. To attend the award ceremony for the WPY, which in full is called the Wildlife Photographer of the Year, the Natural History Museum in London. My two sons accompanied. My image of a fossa made the breakthrough. Yay! It felt amazing to be recognized amongst the best in the world. By then, during the months following Rodney's passing, I traveled for extended periods in Southern African Game Reserve. By myself, me, my little car, and my lots of camera stuff. That included a 3-week stint on my own in Etosha. There I experienced a flat battery, a flat tire, and a broken car key. Yet I got through it. I could do it. I could do this solo traveling thing as a widow. And I could do it well. Let's forward to May this year. After visiting the church on the hill in Svalbard that Sunday, I was ready to join 10 other international photographers, 2 Dutch naturalists, and Shem Pompian as a photographic guide for the 10 nights, sailing the Arctic Sea in search of wildlife. We went right up to the 80th degree north. I'm the one sort of crouching there in the middle behind the hand. Our quaint base was a 12-passenger icebreaker, built in 1953 and refurbished in 1999. I've included a few pics. This is the boat or the ship. That's our dining room area in the ship. And that's the bridge with all the lovely quaint items in it. Right, I had my own cabin, that's mine, so I could use the top bunk for laying out my clothes in layers, ready to yank them on the minute we received the call to go out on the Zodiacs, in our country called rubber ducks. The first call came late on the first night, and I was zonked after just sinking into a deep sleep. It was a pixel bear, too far to photograph, but we had our test run with getting into onesies and throwing our bodies in gear into a Zodiac in appalling weather and high seas. We had the luxury of having 2 Zodiacs for 12 photographers, which meant never more than 6 passengers and a boatsman naturalist per boat, complete with gun. There was no excuse not to get low shots virtually at water level. I couldn't bear, and that pun is intended, I simply couldn't bear to be separated from the landscape, and I virtually lived on deck. FOMO, and for you guys that don't know what FOMO is, that is a fear of missing out. FOMO ruled my trip. After a day or so, I found and claimed my perch on the front deck of the ship, my camera backpack close by. Gulls and fulmars were everywhere. Spray painting handheld was my preferred attack on these guys, literally chewing up the terabytes. I brought loads of memory cards, 8 in all, and I had 3 sets of batteries for each camera, plus 3 external field disks of 5 terabytes each. Every single night, like I always do when I'm on a field trip, I backed up onto 2 disks. Then I reformatted my memory cards for the next day. I'm running you through just a few of the bird shots. I literally have thousands. Just some quick shots of gulls and fulmars. I don't always know the difference. I love this specific photo with the ice dripping down and just the 2 gulls being there for each other. And a backside shot, which I thought was quite nice because of the lines. I love the red contrasting with the white here. It was tense because we were looking at 2 sets of photos. Here we go. Lovely gull shot. And then the reflection of those 2. I love to photograph 2 gulls together, even though the rule is for 3. And this is probably one of my favorite shots of the whole trip. The 2 gulls just looking out into the future. Little one sitting on the ice. Never could any photo outing be plain sailing. Not for me anyway. Securing my adapter to the only electrical point in the cabin was a challenge. Moleskin plaster has a lot of uses. I always carry an extension cord and 2 strip multi-plugs. From yanking the tight-fitting Canon R3 with mounted extender and long lens out of the camera bag, the soft eyepiece of the R3 became a battle casualty. No problem, MacGyver here will fix. Strips of cut plaster secured it. Now, I know my friend Peter, he loves the story. All good until our first decent bear sight. Time for the black screen of death. No go, no see any controls. I hysterically changed cameras and continued to shoot without missing a frame. Later on, I figured that the plaster added pressure to the eyepiece, making the clever camera believe my eye was pressed against the eyepiece. That info tells said intelligent camera to turn off the screen at the back, resulting in the blackout. The R3 now remains without an eyepiece, as it's simply a useless, flimsy design that stands out far too far for any camera bag. Knowing one's equipment on a trip like this is crucial. The camera becomes an extension of one's eye. Changing settings are like riding a bicycle. Mirrorless makes a huge difference to a wildlife photographer's life. No more worrying and fussing with moving the focal point. Set the camera on focus tracking, either for animals or birds, and forget about it. I used the R5 with its massive sensor when I thought I would crop, and the R3 when I needed brilliant focus. I tended on this trip to gravitate to the R5 for that cropping ability. I used my tripod and gimbal head a lot on deck, but never in the Zodiacs. One of my favorite photos with a lone bird there, but just saying I shoot on manual with auto ISO, and I tried to maintain a speed of about 0.002 of a second with a long lens and extender. I didn't bother too much with exposure compensation on this trip. A longer lens user generally tends to zoom in on his subject until only the eyelashes are visible. I'm trying to train myself to show more of the animal's environment and include principles of landscape photography into my style. It means looking at wildlife differently, seeing triangles and leading lines that were previously disturbing to me, and consciously working towards including them into the composition. This image of a bird in flight illustrates it. I just wish his wings were down. Early spring is not the season for birds. However, in addition to millions of gulls and fulmars, we had plenty of opportunity to photograph guillemots with their flashy red feet, common eiders, and king eiders. I loved being on water level to photograph these guys. Birds and landscapes during this trip became one in my mind, lines extending, triangles forming. I never remember the names of the species that I photographed. This happens to be a baby seal. My mission is to turn wildlife into models, making them desirable for someone to want them as a poster on his wall. Basically, an animal pinup. One would probably want to conserve the model in your pinup poster. So I get confused between harbor seals and ringed seals, but I love their cuteness overload. They are the small seals in the photos. This big fellow, which I got from very close up on the Zodiac, is a bearded seal. And most of these images that are so close up took hours, but they were taken from a Zodiac. Normally, if we went out on the Zodiacs, the ship would anchor, the passengers would heave themselves into the Zodiacs and then speed off over the water. Sometimes ice would form while we're on an outing, which resulted in some hair-raising navigation of the Zodiacs through the ice. If all else failed, the captain would have had to start the engine and rescue us. A quote from C.S. Lewis's Alice in Wonderland churned through my head as we spent time with these giant cigars on ice. The time has come, the walrus said, to talk of many things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot, and whether pigs have wings. Okay, that was my walrus voice. Walrus look and behave like wise old men. They're fairly stinky things to be around, passing gas indiscriminately and noisily. Of course, some guys just couldn't help themselves in imitating the exhaust noises of the walrus. Boys will be boys. Getting an interesting shot of walrus is tricky as they sleep most of the time or spitefully turn their heads away. Again, I alternated between close-up shots and ones that include the environment. Somehow I feel that the environmental shots are more successful. But with high key being one of my favorite ways of taking photographs, I had quite a lot of fun with these walruses. I'm just going to have a few more slides from them, most of them in high key, and this is one of my very favorite shots. High key one. Most memorable, however, etched into my soul is the ice. That which humans, through sheer stupidity, greed, and neglect, are allowing to recede at an alarming rate, 13% per year to be exact. That means that by 2040, this awesome world, this place that healed my soul and blessed me so much, will be no more. Unless we do something about it. In our own small way, on this Zoom meeting, let's share that awful awareness by taking a few minutes of silence while running through some landscape and ice shots. Some are unedited or very clumsily edited. Perfect editing will take me years. Breathe and experience nature's healing in your own spirit. I'm now going to have a few images without any talk. This was taken on a beach. Just see the beauty in the place. The tranquility. Feel your shoulders relaxing. And just drink in the beauty of nature. Images don't have to be perfect, as long as they convey that sense of joy and happiness that I have in nature. Taken down the front of the ship, the bow. There are 1,600 glaciers in Svalbard alone. Okay, 3 more slides, and then I'll start talking again. But just look at this. This is just so beautiful. I was amazed at how much I enjoyed landscape photography. It never appealed to me before Svalbard. The ghostly shapes of the Spitsbergen changed that forever. They've inspired me to consider more Arctic travel, especially overland. Finally, the polar bears. The first one I saw was on a ship carrying around 40 people. It was a day trip I took. I burst into tears and I literally photographed in a daze. Yes, seeing a polar bear in the wild is truly that special. I had other spectacular sightings with far too many images to share. One bear appeared while we were lunching on pea soup with bacon in it. The bacon flavors wafting over the ice clearly impressed him, and he kept on sniffing the air. Eventually, he turned away in disappointment, blending into his environment. We photographed this guy from our ship, which lay very low in the water. And that is the nice thing about being on a small vessel, because you actually have a very good low point. But experiencing a polar bear from a zodiac about 25 meters away is indescribable. The Zodiac allowed for low-level shooting, especially as the bear was on an ice shelf slightly higher than our boat. I could capture a strong sense of place and environment with the famous Svalbard peaks in the background. This young bear plunged in and out of the water, and a few times we had to reverse as he could have popped out too close to the Zodiac, putting us in danger. He was such fun to watch. He desperately wanted to catch a gull, but of course he came nowhere close. Diving into the water under the ice also didn't seem to be profitable in the dinner department. Eventually he begged some walruses for a game, but these grumpy guys were bad-mannered towards him, and he trotted off in a huff. I'm sharing a few more photos of this bear. He was just so spectacular. Shaking his head, shaking the water off, leaping into the air, being just fun, sniffing the air, and I just wanted to touch him. It was just so beautiful. Gave us a lovely reflection. And he just strode along so confidently, but he was obviously quite hungry. 3 more slides of him. There we go. Look at that texture. Just look, and then this is stuff that I'm getting out of here. This is nonsense. He leapt out and he went on in his own business. Learning how to operate photographic equipment can be done anywhere, even on YouTube. Finding a subject that you're in love with and want to photograph is a decision of passion, one taken in the heart, one taken alone. Whether it's macro, landscapes, interiors, or movement, treat that subject of your passion like a lover. Cherish it and lavish all your attention on it. Nurture it, study it, breathe it in. Without passion, photography will remain forever a loveless marriage. Find your passion and you find a good photo. Why did I need Svalbard? I needed healing to get through a process of becoming myself again, to accept the pain that I've lived through in the past few years. I needed time out. I needed once again to become that girl, that woman of good, better Betsy. And I think I found that again in Svalbard. 3 more shots that are just beautiful, artist story. In retrospect, what did Svalbard bring to me? There I am alone on the boat. Svalbard touched my soul. It connected me to my shadow. It made me laugh. It made me cry. I still get emotional when I talk about the place. I believe the 2 weeks in this spectacular archipelago made me whole again, free to accept pain and gain freely, free to tackle the road ahead. I have a new, broader view on photography, less urgent, more confident, more respectful of the bigger environment. I'm less keen to impress with my photos, rather keen to convince. We're just going to switch over to video mode, so I can say my last story. Okay, just give us a little bit of time. It's just getting me on. Videoing, please. Okay. Okay. Right. My spirit is now invincible. My mind is now unstoppable. My body has now healed. Until the Lord decides there's no more escaping the net, I will live, photograph, and edit with passion, with enthusiasm, even with fury. I plan to complete my trips to the Pumas in Patagonia, Chile next year, stopping over in Santiago de Chile to meet my 2 cardiologists. Full circle. In the meantime, there's a leopard to photograph in Siberia in winter. There are other wild places and species that beckon. Thank you to each and every one of you for joining me on this exhilarating journey of passion. I'm a woman truly blessed amongst women.
Thank you, Elize. That was magnificent.
Thank you, Lisa. Such a pleasure.
Elize,
Thank you, Elize.
Elize.
Really inspiring journey.
Thank you, John.
You've given me a serious case of FOMO, I'm afraid.
Definitely. Such bad FOMO.
Hi, Elize. Elize, thank you so much for that inspirational experience. Yeah, you bring tears to my eyes, because I was actually in Svalbard 9 years today, and you have just brought back for me very special memories, which I will remember. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hugs, Evelyn. Hugs. Hugs to you, Evelyn.
Yes, it's really inspirational, because wildlife photography tends to be quite a man's type of world. You know, they're stronger and fitter and can get to places easier, and you know, can take off from the family and go and that sort of thing. But it's very inspirational to see a woman amongst them, and real dynamo you are. So
Thanks so
know,
much.
it's very inspirational. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I love that image with the walruses with the out of focus boat at the back.
Yes.
I can't remember 134,
Absolutely.
I think it was, but I really enjoyed that, the way that you brought in the background just to sort of complete the story.
Normally, I would have edited that out, but I've
Yeah,
kind of
no,
rolled
I
the
think
out.
it's perfect, yes. And the
Lovely.
landscape adds so much to all those images as well. So yeah, your next journey is as a wildlife photographer, but concentrating on the landscape.
No, that you'll have to teach me, eh? That you guys will have.
I thought the shot of the gull with the kind of, I don't know, the hills in the background, it was really spectacular.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was quite a
One of my
journey to a
favourites.
surreal world, really. Something so far from our usual experiences.
I think my Canadian friends and people that live in that kind of environment, my own brother-in-law lives there. For them, the ice and the snow isn't so much of a big deal, but for me, it was overwhelming.
I think
so
all of
surreal.
us, yeah,
Yeah.
just love it. So Elize, you have to go to Iceland, because if you're becoming a landscape photographer, you will absolutely go.
I need a
mad.
lot of training. Oh, gee, Leslie, you have to train a lot. You know, I actually said I'll never take up landscape photography, but I'm tempted now. You know, it's another challenge, and you know, there's time. So you've got time, you can learn something.
Yeah, you're not
Elise,
one
I've got
to
a-
shy from challenges, I don't think.
I've got a very easy solution to your landscape problem. Just
Yeah.
Photoshop out the animals and you'll have wonderful landscapes.
Yeah.
Any questions from anybody?
No, I just want to say congratulations. Yes, Elize, it's fantastic. Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. I was just
Uh,
gobsmacked with your absolutely enthusiasm, and you're so powerful. You are such an amazing person.
Thanks, Jacomarie. Lovely to see you again. Thank you so much for joining in. Baie dankie.
I enjoyed every second of it.
Thanks, Jacomarie. And we'll chat again, you and I.
Yep.
Elize, if you look at the chat, there's some messages also in the chat.
Yeah.
And if you can access the chat.
Yes, David has now, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
That
you.
was a super talk. Thank you, Elize. Well done.
Great. Thanks a lot. And we'll talk again when we just speak to Jenny.
Okay, yeah. And also Chris.
Yes.